You ever step out of your truck after 7 years away and feel like the world's been flipped upside down? Like you blinked and the universe handed your whole damn legacy to the wolves? That's what hit me right in the gut when I rolled past the old Blaine Ranch sign, where the sign used to be back in Carbon County, Wyoming. Gravel crunched under the tires, sagebrush dust swirling in the dry air. Sun so sharp it felt like God had dropped a blowtorch on the plateau. I should have felt like I was home. Instead, all I saw was trouble. See, my granddad's ranch was his kingdom. Open sky, cedar posts, a crooked mailbox with his initials burned deep. Blaine land, no question. But as I crept closer, it was like the bones of the past had been ripped out and replaced with plastic. Steel gates where the old archway stood, brand new cameras blinking like some dystopian sci-fi. And then, hell, I nearly laughed, a vinyl sign, beige and ugly, that read, "Welcome to Eaglerist HOA Dog Training Grounds. Private members only." I stepped out slow, boots planting me in what should have been mine. Fence line gone. Chain link, barbed wire cameras. Where our porch used to be, a dog agility course. Ramps. Tunnels. My blood boiled so hard my hands shook. First, I thought squatters. But this was organized. Too clean. Too bold. There's a prefab shack right by the gate. Some guy inside, nose buried in a tablet. Didn't even look up when I walked up, so I asked straight, "You the owner here?" He didn't miss a beat. "You HOA?" "No, then you're trespassing, bud." That got me. I told him who I was, Elliot Blaine. He stiffened up, suddenly real defensive. "We've had this property under HOA designation for years. You're not on the list." That was my first taste of their arrogance. Like the only reality that mattered was what they printed on some spreadsheet. I just laughed and told him I am the management, at least as far as this land is concerned. Then I did what any sane person does, pulled the records on my phone. My name, still right there, top of the land registry. Sole beneficiary, 160 acres, all private, no HOA. But then I found something rotten, a zoning proposal from 3 years back, my landmark common use pending claim. Now, I'd spent years mapping federal boundaries out west. I knew what that little phrase meant. It was a land grab, hoping no one would scream. So I called the county. Bev, she's been running that recorder's office since before anyone had a computer. She found the file, confirmed I was the legal owner, taxes paid up, no liens, nothing. But there'd been a filing from this Eaglerist Hills HOA, trying to rope my land into their zone. Said I'd been served a notice. Bev checked the signatures. "I'll get you copies," she promised, voice tired but sharp. "If there's forgery, we'll catch it." Sunset bled over the prairie, throwing long shadows over my granddad's old field. I stood there, hands clenched, cold anger boiling. Tomorrow, I'd be back, with tools, with proof, with a plan. If this Karen thought she could bulldoze my family's legacy into a dog circus, she was about to get a Wyoming education she'd never forget. I was up before dawn, coffee in hand, toolkit rattling behind the seat. Spent half the night combing through old surveys, overlays, every doc Bev sent. Their HOA map was a joke. Erased my trust, slapped on a new lot number, forged a signature so sloppy it looked like a kindergartner's. This wasn't a mistake. It was theft, plain as day. Cut through their shiny new lock with my grinder, replaced it with my own chain. Hired 2 local college boys to help clear the rubble, mark boundaries, post notices, private property, not subject to HOA. They didn't ask questions, just worked, maybe because they saw I was a man on a mission. We found the original corner pin, concrete, just where Granddad left it. Their fence was 27 feet onto my land. Got photos, coordinates, time-stamped every damn inch. That's when she showed up, black Mercedes, dust plume, dressed like she owned the county. Karen, designer sunglasses, platinum bob, that clipped tone of voice. "You need to stop all this immediately," she snapped, marching over like I was a stray dog. "You're trespassing on managed HOA grounds." I wiped sweat from my brow, raised an eyebrow. "Which part of this is your land again?" She didn't flinch, rattled off some nonsense about Parcel 53, Section 5.4. I handed her the deed, the overlays, the affidavit from the county. She didn't even look. Just pulled out her phone. Threatened HOA enforcement, local law, fines, criminal trespass. Well, that made me grin. Please do, I said. I'd love to see the sheriff out here. 20 minutes later, here comes Deputy Ray, sun-dried, slow-moving, worn out by 1,000 HOA headaches. Karen rushes him, yelling about trespass, threats, impersonation. Ray turns to me. You got paperwork? I hand him everything. He flips through it, then turns to Karen. Ma'am, nothing I see here says this isn't his land. It ain't HOA. You're standing on his dirt. Karen sputters, tries to wave her official maps. Ray isn't having it. You need to vacate, he says. You're not issuing fines. You're not installing more cameras. You're not calling contractors. Do I make myself clear? Karen storms off, her SUV spraying gravel. Ray asks if I'll be all right. I've got more fences to undo and a few lies to unwind, I tell him. He just chuckles. Welcome home, Blaine. But the war wasn't over. 2 days later, I'm back out with signs and tools, and a silver Tahoe pulls up, Ridgeline Realty. Some slick city boy, his assistant trailing behind, says he's here for a pre-listing walkthrough on Parcel 53, HOA signed off. I hand him my paperwork, full trust deed, overlays, the works. There's not going to be a listing, I say. HOA has no authority here. He looks confused, shows me a glossy packet, a lease agreement from 2016 with my name. Only problem? I wasn't even in Wyoming then, and the signature's a forgery. Snapped a photo, told them to leave or deal with the sheriff. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just HOA overreach. This was a full-on scheme. New locks installed on my own gates. Invoices billed to the HOA, signed by Karen Fitzroy. I called the sheriff, showed the deputy every fake document, GPS logs proving I wasn't even in state when these leases were signed. Deputy shook his head. This is turning into a damn mess. Then he runs a check. Karen's HOA had just filed to reclassify my land as abandoned communal zone, using the forged lease as proof. Calculated fraud. It escalated fast. The next morning, I found the well, my granddad's well, sabotaged. Concrete poured down the shaft, pump trashed, bird dead in the runoff. Trash everywhere. Insulation, chairs, busted appliances. They made my pasture look like a dump, then filed an environmental complaint with the HOA, fined me $12 grand for pollution. It was pure malice. Karen trying to bury me under her own lies. But she didn't count on technology. See, I'd set up trail cams, hidden one inside a birdhouse near the gate. I caught the concrete truck, the workers, the HOA's Lexus SUV. Sent it all to my lawyer, filed official complaints, environmental crimes, fraud, everything. County inspector pulled soil samples, found industrial cement, labeled it a felony if it reached the water table. Days later, I get a call, real estate developers lined up to break ground, swindled by Karen's fake lease, forged power of attorney under my name. Turns out, she'd set up a shell entity, funneled everything through HOA paperwork, sold off pieces of my land on paper. This wasn't just greedy, this was criminal. I demanded a full investigation. Sat in the recorder's office, the real deeds side by side with Karen's fakes. One look, and the clerk went pale. 3 investigators came out, fraud unit, realtor board, state notary. They walked my property, took every document, every video, every scrap of evidence. My lawyer filed an emergency injunction. Cease and desist on all real estate activity. HOA's assets frozen. They served Karen at her own front door. Neighbor texted me. She went white as a sheet, didn't say a word. Next day, the cavalry arrived, state officials, county fraud liaison. They documented the whole scam. By that week's end, I'd signed affidavits for criminal misrepresentation, notarial fraud, grand real estate theft. Karen's little kingdom started to collapse. Neighbors resigning, members apologizing, lawyers howling for blood. HOA bank accounts frozen, assets seized. But Karen wasn't done. Sabotaged my well again, this time caught on camera. Filed a complaint the same morning, tried to frame me. Contractor's app had her request. Time-stamped, GPS logged. The state issued a violation, cleanup costs on her. My lawsuit moved ahead, fraud, conversion, punitive damages, everything. We pulled HOA records. Karen had paid herself management fees, funneled thousands into her dog park beautification, created fake developer contracts with ghost companies. The judge froze everything, trial date set. Karen's supporters scattered. The morning of the hearing, the room was packed. Press, neighbors, everyone waiting for justice. My attorney laid out the mountain of proof, deeds, maps, video, financials. The prosecution hammered her with fraud, forgery, sabotage. Karen's defense? Clerical error. The judge just stared at her, then read the verdict. The Blaine Ranch was never under HOA control. All attempts to seize it were unlawful. The environmental crimes were felonies. Karen, 12 years in state prison, no parole before 5. HOA dissolved, assets used for cleanup and legal costs. I watched as they cleared the last of the dog training signs. Karen's daughter dragging her suitcase away, neighbors clearing out. The wind swept across the land, dust settling, the sun dipping low. That night, I poured myself a glass of whiskey, sat on the porch, what would soon be my new house, with a sign that read Private Ranch. Finally, justice served. I thought I was just fighting for my land. But somewhere along the way, it became a fight for truth, for the simple right not to be conned out of what you love. The world's full of Karens, people who will bend every rule, forge every paper, just to grab what isn't theirs. Sometimes you've got to stand up and show them some boundaries can't be moved, not for money, not for power, not for convenience. And that's what sticks with me. Maybe that's the real lesson here. Not every wrong gets righted, but if you don't stand up, nobody ever will. Maybe it's just dirt and sky and cedar fence to some folks, but to me, it's everything. So, where do you draw the line? If your legacy, your name, your very history is at stake, do you fight or do you fold? Let me know down in the comments. Where's the line for you? Ever tangled with an HOA, a greedy neighbor, or someone trying to steal what's yours? Drop your story, share your thoughts, because, buddy, justice doesn't happen unless we all stand up for it.